Why I Wish the Left Spoke More Like Stand-Up Comedians. An essay by Matt Ruby. That's me. So my timeline skews left, which means every day it's filled with screeds about how, well, white men are the worst. I spent the past month collecting random outbursts against white men, and here's just a taste of what was in my timeline. If you had to pick one white man to keep and rocket the rest into the sun, who would it be? The King of Comedy is a great movie about how annoying white men are and how they disrupt your life with their insecurities. A lot of scared straight white dudes out there. The biggest professional motivator in my life was sitting at coffee shops in LA listening to annoying white men talk about their projects and scripts and realizing if these dummies can do it, I certainly can. I've decided to blame straight white men for all of my problems. Maybe straight white men should stop doing theology for a while. I've heard enough from them. So, does this offend me as a straight white man?
No, it offends me as a comedian.
All right. Apologies to Jerry Seinfeld, but honestly, it's tiresome to watch duller dunkers oozing moral superiority while posting simplistic, unoriginal thoughts about the easiest target around. I get it. Straight white men suck, but there's nothing brave about saying that. This isn't me being sensitive. I mean, by all means, attack me for the awful stuff I say and do. Trust me, my brain does it all the time. And I'm not saying straight white men should be immune to criticism or jokes. I just want you to come at us in a way that's original, funny, or thought-provoking. Because too often these posts are just a brutal combination. Morally superior, yet rhetorically inferior. See, the worst thing you can be as a comedian is a hack. Someone who trots out the same tired ideas people have heard over and over again. You know, online dating is tough. The TSA sucks. Cats and dogs are different. Spirit Airlines blows. I mean, yeah, we know. I've spent years in comedy clubs and developed a severe case of hack phobia. And unfortunately, it's crawling all over social media, especially on the left. And it's a bummer because I often agree with them. I get it. Many of them are just trying to genuinely point out injustices. But too often it comes off like a holier-than-thou parade. You can predict the talking points far in advance. You know, masculinity is toxic. White supremacy is the cause of everything bad. Colonizer this, intersectionality that. And my problem isn't that these notions are wrong. It's just how trite it is in the way it's presented. There's no surprise. You're just saying what everyone else in your tribe is saying. It just feels like groupthink 101. And maybe worst of all, it succeeds. Likes and shares roll in as a result. That's the annoying thing about being hack. It works. It's lowest common denominator, so it goes over. But it's also the easy way out. Let's talk about clapter. It's a cardinal sin among comedians. That's when you're seeking applause instead of laughs. And the problem with that, applause are polite. Laughs are primal. Applause you have to think about. Laughs just come out of you. And that's why clapter is reviled amongst most comedians. I mean, sure, you can get pandering applause, but can you get genuine laughter? That's the hard part. Because it's easy to get applause. You just say stuff like, I just got engaged. We just had a baby. I'm a feminist. It's my birthday. Cue the applause. I mean, congrats. The trained seals are now clapping along. But you didn't really do anything interesting. Another lesson from stand-up, let go of being offended. Comics say awful things to each other all the time without feeling like a line's been crossed. We roast each other on stage, mock each other's outfits off stage, find glee in a friend bombing, and just generally delight in pressing whichever button a person has sticking out. As comedians, we learn to take it all in stride. After all, there's no HR department for us. We are people who play with words and ideas, and once you enter the arena, all that stuff is fair game. You learn to tell the difference between play fighting and real fighting. After all, they're only words. Here's how I feel about getting offended. If someone's telling the truth, you might not like it, but hey, it's true. And if they're not telling the truth, then they're just wrong. So how upset are you going to get at someone for being wrong? Basically, getting offended just gives the other person power over you. There's a quote by Dr. Wayne Dyer that I've always loved. Stop looking for opportunities to be offended. Comics also realize intention matters. If you're just being a jerk, that's one thing. But if you're trying to get laughs, that's another. That's why it's so obnoxious when media stories quote a comic's act like it's a State of the Union speech or something. Did this guy say that line in front of a brick wall at a comedy club or a burning cross at a Klan rally? Because that kind of matters. That's why it's odd how little intention seems to come into play nowadays. Here's a quote from then New York Times executive editor Dean Baquet. We do not tolerate racist language regardless of intent. He said that after firing reporter Donald McNeil Jr., who was asking a question about the use of the N-word. But there's a problem there. The Times printed the N-word multiple times in various contexts in the months leading up to McNeil's firing. That sort of lack of logical consistency makes it seem as if people are just making up the rules as they go along. Now let's talk about punching up. We've all heard about how good comedy should, of course, punch up. After all, you can kill with a bit about homeless people or the handicapped, but well, that's just kind of gross. If you can get laughs by sticking it to those in power, that's a way more noble endeavor. Plus, it'll do a better job at getting the crowd on your side. But what is punching up these days? That's where it gets tricky. For the left, common foes are the 1%, the patriarchy, white supremacy, cops, and rednecks who live in the South and vote Republican. But let's look at that last one. Imagine you're some broke-ass white guy with a GED who lives in a trailer park in some red state, and the factory in your town shut down, and there aren't any jobs, and half of the people around you are addicted to Oxy. You keep hearing about the importance of diversity, yet no one in the national media ever looks or sounds like you. So when a bunch of liberal arts grads who went to Ivy League schools and work at Condé Nast start in on your kind, do you think you'd consider it punching up? Another thing, smart comedians avoid finger pointing. They know we suck carries way more weight than you suck. And they go for the opposite of virtue signaling. A smart comic talks about the things he or she feels guilty about because they know it's way more compelling than lecturing the crowd on what they should feel guilty about. No one's perfect, and constant posturing, it's tiresome. So go ahead, fight for what you believe in, attack who you want to attack, just avoid the same old insults tossed at the same old targets in the same old way. If it's been said before in hundreds of other places, why say it again? Do your best to find an innovative approach that hasn't been heard before. For example, here's me talking about why I think straight white men are messed up. But yeah, I'm a straight white man. Yeah, not a lot of fans these days. I don't know. I will say this about straight white men. We've really cornered the market on mass shootings. That's our territory. I got a theory. I think it's because we don't dance enough. I really think that is the reason. Like, think about it. Like, black dudes dance, gay men dance, women dance. Straight white dudes were just standing in the corner and be like, I gotta shoot up this dance floor. Yeah. I got us all this privilege. Everyone's still happier than me. What the fuck? What was the point? And now let's bring in producer Jeremiah McVeigh. Hey, Jeremiah.
Hey, Matt. So I know you're not specifically talking about just like social media, but I feel like so much of what you're talking about is echo chambers and bubbles and just the way people, of course, kind of, you know, like you said, repeat the same talking points, exhibit groupthink, etc. Mm-hmm. And I do feel like the way the culture has changed and has been changed by online stuff, whether it's social media or anything else. There was a point at which it seemed like the internet was going to democratize things and give everyone a voice. And there are certain days and certain moments where, as much as I think everyone deserves to have their voice heard in some way, I do wish we couldn't hear everybody. I know it's bad to want gatekeeping, but sometimes we just don't need to hear from everybody all the time.
It's bad to want gatekeeping until you see the alternative, which is just chaos where, like, you know, it's just thousands of people each with a megaphone yelling at each other.
Yeah. This isn't exactly on point for what you're talking about, but I think it is a related problem that maybe helps us understand it, maybe. I think TikTok is the worst. I'm like kind of hoping that it does actually get banned as we're recording this a law has been passed and signed, but they have like a year to figure out what to do with TikTok before it gets banned in the country. And the thing I've always hated about TikTok is the way it has memeified audio and video of just like everyone's doing the same joke literally now. Like they just use the literal audio half the time and just like do their version of it. Or you see people like take the same clip and all do the same bit in relation to that clip. And it's just so dumb. It's like, we don't need you all to do the same joke. We don't need you all to pretend to lip sync to the same humor, because it's not funny after we've heard it like 50 times. I don't know what's different about it versus like, I enjoyed really good memes back in like the, height of Tumblr days, and like seeing like all the exhibit memes about like pimp your ride and you put a this into this into this and all that. Hilarious. But at some point it plays out, and it seems like this stuff just like plays out so quickly, but not everybody gets the memo at the same time. So I don't know. That's not exactly, like I said, on point, but I do feel like we're at a point as a culture where, yeah, everybody thinks they're funny. Everybody thinks that they have a take, and do we need it? Like, I feel bad saying that in a way, but do we? So that's where I'm kind of at with it, where I'm coming to your essay from.
Yeah, I feel like I go back to the hack notion in stand-up comedy, which it's not that you think the person is wrong. It's that you're like, this is too obvious. We've already been over this ground. When someone's talking about, how online dating apps are hard, or Spirit Airlines is like a crappy airline to fly, or New York's like this and LA's like that. It's like, yeah, we know. Yeah. Like, yes, throughout, centuries in America, straight white men have behaved poorly. I get it. Me too. We got it. It's just sort of like, what are you saying that hasn't been said before? What's the take here that's interesting? And I think it's the combination of sort of this, repetitive, trite, banal kind of statements combined with a level of like moral superiority and sort of like condemnation. And I'm brave, and I'm the one who's doing the right thing. And I think that can just be like a really off-putting combination. And I think it's, then it leads to a lot of the blowback that you wind up seeing. If we're talking about politically or on the right or in media, I think then you see things like libs of TikTok or something like that, where then it starts to generate all this, hatred on the other side. And you wind up sort of feeding chum to your political opponents on some level, through this sort of, hack, trite sort of commentary. And, yeah, and also it's just not entertaining. I don't know. It's like, to me, I'm always like, make it interesting, make it entertaining, make it surprising. Give me something I haven't, thought of before, as opposed to just the same old over and over again.
I think anytime you can be innovative or peel like another layer off the onion, so to speak, to get at something a little fresh. It doesn't have to be a lot. I think a little goes a long way when you're dealing with something that everyone is already talking about,
Yeah, I think another, sort of stand-up comedy lesson that I didn't put in there, but I think is true, is like, job number one is to be engaging, to be compelling, to like actually have people want to pay attention to what you have to say next. And if out of the gate you're just sort of being redundant and, sort of telling people stuff they've heard before, they're going to tune you out. So yeah, if you want your message to be heard, leading off this way is not a helpful approach. And now it's time for some quickies. The weird thing about protests is how much power is given to just whoever has a megaphone. I mean, think about what kind of person goes out and thinks, I really need a megaphone. Here's a tip. The best scientists don't have subscribers. Also, the best doctors don't have podcasts. Bird watchers are just wildlife peeping toms. I know, life is a movie. The problem? I thought I was making a superhero flick, and I'm starting to realize it's just a weird art film. You can subscribe to or follow this show just about anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you have a moment, please rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, or anywhere else that allows you to do that. And when I say that, I mean, like, leave it a good review. I feel like that's obvious, but if you're just going to leave it a bad review, you don't have to. Anyway, it helps others find the show, which I really appreciate. If you want to reach out to me directly, you can email me at mattruby@hey.com. That's mattruby@hey.com. And if you like this podcast, you should subscribe to the Rubes Letter, where what you just heard first appeared. You can find that at mattrubycomedy.com/subscribe. And while you're at mattrubycomedy.com, you can also find links to my Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok, where I post clips of my stand-up and other stuff too. Thanks so much for listening. I appreciate it.
This podcast is produced by Stereoactive Media.